Hello, my name is Jill Corbyn. I am an associate with the National Development Team for Inclusion, and I'm going to share a short presentation about working with autistic people. So I've titled this presentation Co-Production to Autistic Led. So as an example, I'm going to be referring to a report that I was lead author for. It's called the It's Not Rocket Science report. And the It's Not Rocket Science report focused on considering and meeting sensory need in children's inpatient services. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I worked with other autistic people to write that report and some of the considerations we made to help get it right for people. I do just want to credit the artist who did this image, and they're called Sam Chownahern. So Sam did quite a lot of the artwork for us for the Rocket Science report. So this image is one that I found on Google, and I like it because there's an image of a footpath, and next to it, across some grass, is a kind of a muddy path that has been worn where people have walked, and it's a reminder to me really about the importance of listening to people, involving people, and making sure that we get it right from the beginning. So one of the things that people sometimes say to me is that we can't work with people because we haven't got time or we haven't got the money. And I'm really conscious that actually if we don't make time to work with people, and if we don't free up the resources to involve people from the beginning and to pay them for their time and their expertise, then we risk our investment. We risk any time and money that we do spend being used to put the path in the wrong direction. So to create something that actually isn't useful at all, or is of limited use and limited impact. So I think that it can be really important and really good value to involve people from the beginning. Because when we work with people who are walking the path, they help us get it right and they help us invest in the right ways. This next slide is an image from Creative Clinical Psychologist. So it's another one that I found online. So it's drawn by someone called Juliet Young. Thanks, Juliet. It's a great image. And it's an image of Einstein's ladder. So Einstein came up with a theory about involvement, about working with people. It's the ladder of participation. So at the top is citizen power. So where stakeholders have the idea and they set up the project. Underneath that is delegated power. So a goal is created by a facilitator, but resources and responsibility are given to citizens. Moving through to tokenism, where people are perhaps consulted or involved in an informal way, so their ideas are heard but not necessarily acted on. Moving down to educating, so where people who are most impacted or affected are passive recipients, so they're told about the changes. And at the bottom, and this is one that I want to draw attention to, is manipulation. So this is where there's an illusion of participation, but actually power is denied. And I think perhaps inadvertently we see quite a lot of manipulation when we hear about involvement in services and development. And I when I'm supporting teams to think about how they're going to work with people and how they can involve people, I will remind them of the importance and the benefit of giving people power and control, stakeholders, people who are most affected by the decisions. But we'll always say, if most of your decisions are already made, and you are consulting people, or you are informing people, then do that. Don't pretend it's something else. Don't pretend that you're involving people. Be really, really clear about what decisions people can influence and what decisions are already made. So I think that's a really important thing. Is, you know, it's great to involve people more. It's great to give people more power and more control and more say and more influence over the decisions. But if that isn't possible, then it's better to be really clear about that and to consult or to inform if that's really what's happening. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we created the rocket science paper. So first up, and I think perhaps quite unusually, the need was identified by autistic people. So autistic people said to us, the sensory environment in inpatient services is really harmful and it needs to be addressed. So we then worked with autistic advisors. So I managed to get some funding to support us to write this report. And I worked with autistic advisors, actually a couple of people, and they helped me to get my communication right, to make sure that the focus of the report was right and was going to be useful. They helped me to develop the information that I shared with participants and to make sure that my approach was really autism informed. So I then went through an organisational ethics check just to make sure that I was working in a way that was responsible and wasn't going to be harmful to people. And one of the additional things that I put in place, because we were asking some young autistic people about their experience of inpatient care, we also commissioned some support from a psychologist, an autism-informed psychologist, someone who'd come recommended, and someone who'd be available to support people if anything difficult did come up. And that wasn't used actually, but it was something that was really important to us to make sure that people had support and weren't going to be left in a worse position or adversely affected because they'd been involved in our project. So we then developed a really clear information sheet. And this information sheet included what we were doing, why we were doing it, what questions we were asking so people could think about them ahead of time, how and when people would be paid, whether people wanted to be anonymous or if they wanted to be named, so what decisions they could make around that, and also tell people at which point they could withdraw. So if people contributed, then reviewed it and decided that they didn't want to be involved, they could withdraw all their information, or they could anonymise it, or they could change it. But after a certain date, it was going to be published, and so they wouldn't be able to make those changes. So we were really, really explicit around how people's information was going to be used and at what point they could make those decisions. So as well as asking questions, we told people what questions we were going to be asking, but we also invited people to tell us if there was anything else that they wanted to say about this topic. We made payment information really clear from the beginning. And again, we recognise that actually many autistic people are not in employment or have additional barriers to employment. And it was really, really important that we recognise people's time and contribution and were explicit about how much people would be paid, when they would be paid. So the other thing that we did was that we responded to what people told us. So we had our fixed questions that we got our answers to, but people also told us other things that they would want to change. So, for example, we were focusing on the physical environment, the built environment, and what the sensory environment was like. But people told us that actually the most unpredictable thing in any environment is other people, and that staff culture and approach was really, really important and was significant enough that it could make a good environment difficult or a difficult environment quite good. So we changed the content and the structure and the focus of the report based on what people told us. Once we'd written it, we got their sign-off. So we shared the full report with people. We told them how to search for references to their name or their alias, where people had chosen to be anonymised, and so that they could make sure that their comments were true to what they'd said, and that they fit within the broader content and context. So, for example, some people said to us previously they've been harmed when their comments have been used to support ideas that they don't believe or agree with. So it felt really important that people got the final sign-off once they could see the context of the report and the argument and kind of case that we were making overall. In addition, we engaged some autistic artists, again, paying people for their time and contribution, and we credited and acknowledged all contributions. So in the beginning of the report, we referenced everyone who'd been involved. So there's some hints and tips based on what I've said here. So expect listening to and working with people to take time and resource. So plan from the beginning that it is going to take time and that you're going to pay people. Work with an autistic advisor or advisory team. Involve people from the very beginning and actually even before the start. So from the ideas around what's needed and how it's going to work and how to involve people, like from the very, very beginning, and actually before we had a commission, this idea and this concept started with autistic people. So we found it really important to be clear about what we were asking and what influence was possible. So in this report, we were saying we're going to be reporting on our experience of inpatient services. We hope that other people will listen and respond to this, but we can't make sure that they do. This is a guidance and advisory document rather than something that people have to follow. If you can, it's really good to invite people to tell you if you've forgotten or missed anything. So, we had a very clear and definite focus, but we did invite comments beyond that, which, as I say, changed the focus and the scope of the report. It was really important to us that we think about how to make it more accessible, so how to hear from a range of people. So we invited people to contribute in conversation, so to have a call with us, to share written responses, to record a response, and to send it to us, to use images, or to let us know if there was a different way that they wanted to respond, that we would welcome whatever was going to be most meaningful and accessible to them. Respond to what people tell you, so let them know if something's possible or not possible, and how you're going to use the information they've shared. Be really clear about what choice and control people have. So, at what point can people decide to withdraw? How do they do that? That kind of thing. Get sign-off, including the context and broader content, and credit and acknowledge. This all kind of sounds quite simple and straightforward, but I don't know. You probably wouldn't be surprised at how often these little things don't happen. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about the impact on the content and the audience that involvement had. So because of what people told us, we included some additional sections on crisis and community support. So what people told us was, my time in hospital was significant and the sensory environment was an issue, but actually I should never have got there. If there'd been good crisis and community support, then I wouldn't be needing to talk to you about hospital environments. So they really encouraged us to include a section on why crisis and community support is important and how teams get it right. Culture and approach, so how staff work, and again, what people told us was when the staff team are autism informed, and understand autism as a sensory and social processing difference, when they believe what I tell them and support me to consider and meet my needs, really difficult environment feel more manageable. So this isn't just about the building, this is about how staff teams work within the building. Please include something on that. So we did. And the other thing people spoke about was predictability. So about being able to plan and to predict what was going to happen and when made challenging environments feel more manageable. So the contributions that we got and the views of people that we involved changed the scope and focus of the report. And the feedback that we had from other people was that the comments, the personal comments, the personal experiences and the involvement of young people was the thing that was most impactful and that really brought the report to life. So it was a lot of work to hear from people, like months and months of work to work with them to shape the report and to write the content around the comments that we'd got. And to check back with people that we got it right, but it turned it from a report that possibly no one would have read or paid attention to into something that has had a really significant impact and continues to get a lot of engagement. Okay, my second to last slide. So this image and also the image on the previous slide, these are also by Sam Chownahan. And this has a quote from Emily. So Emily is someone who contributed to the It's Not Rocket Science report. And Emily said, I think the things that are useful for autistic people would be beneficial for everyone. She was talking about changes to the physical environment in hospitals, but actually I think it's also true for how we work with people. So if we can be clear around what it is we're doing, how people can contribute, what influence they've got, how they're going to be paid, what time frame they've got to respond, how they can respond. If we can share that information with people in advance and be really explicit about it, actually that doesn't just benefit autistic people, that's really helpful for everybody who might contribute, but also for the people involved in the project. It makes the whole process easier to project manage because you've got definite, clear information and timeframes. This image is of a canary in a mine. So the idea of a canary in a mine is that miners would take canaries down into mines because canaries are more sensitive to like the noxious gases and the difficult environment. And one of the contributors to the report said that they felt that autistic people in hospitals were like canaries in mines, so that we're generally more sensitive to the external environment, but actually it's stuff that is going to affect everybody. So if we get it right for autistic people, then it's likely to benefit everyone else who contributes and is involved as well. Final slide is of some links. So to the It's Not Rocket Science report and presentation, if you're interested in finding out more about considering and meeting sensory needs in inpatient services, many of our findings were also applicable to other environments. There's also a report on considering and meeting sensory need in housing, and finally some slightly more technical guidance on lighting. Yeah, so I hope that's been of interest and useful. Thanks for your time.